Hey everybody, welcome back to The Drop. We're excited to be here. I'm Karina and this is my dad, John.
Yes, I'm here.
And today we're talking about moving forward and how we can do that. We're going to kind of get into, what it looks like. What are practical things basically that you can do to help you reach forward, forget those things behind you, begin to grow or make progress in certain areas. And so it's going to be great for today.
Yep. Well, one of the things we talked about the last episode is that there are things that weigh us down.
Right.
You know, past experiences, hurts, traumas, whatever, betrayals, relationships. And so the weight leads to, if you don't cut that weight, you're constantly dragging. So your progress is not as well. And you have a propensity to trip, to mess up, because now you can't even handle your present because you're constantly dealing with this past. So we talked about a lot of things. I think you ought to go back to that episode if you didn't see it. But
it just reminded me of like when Leo loves to ride his bike. Yeah. And so sometimes when I'm, he's old enough now and there's neighborhood kids, they kind of all ride around together. But sometimes, like I'll be out there and I'll see him riding and he'll be looking back at like the kid behind him or something behind him, and I'll be like, and of course the bike starts to veer.
Right.
It's not going straight anywhere, and I'm like, Leo, look forward. And he's like, and he kind of, and it's true that happens. That can happen to us in our lives. And it's like, because when you're looking back and you're not looking forward, reaching forward, like you just naturally get off track.
Oh, absolutely.
Just naturally, because you're just the whole physics of not looking forward is going to take you one direction and it's not going to be forward, So
I love that, because that happens to me once in a while. I'm driving and I start looking at a billboard or something.
Oh, yeah.
and the car starts going down. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's control here.
It's interesting. It's almost like your brain does this thing where it's like, that's our focus.
Yeah.
And now everything's going that direction, just like this natural thing. And I think it applies super, super real to the spiritual side of life, and what you're focused on in the spiritual realm of your life. Like that's where spiritually you're going to go.
That's where you're going to go.
And I mean, I think it applies to all areas of life, mental and emotional and all of that,
sure.
And that's
which is that comes to our first practical principle. Yes. On how to let go of things, replace it with something. You got to replace it. I always tell people, in order to say no, you have to have a deeper yes.
Yeah.
And the scripture says in Philippians 3:13, brethren, I do not count myself to have apprehended it, which I love his transparency. He says, I'm not there yet, but one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forward to those things which are ahead. So I think that we talked about this a little bit, so we won't spend too much time. But if you don't have something to look forward to, it's really hard to let go of the
what's
past.
Behind. Yeah.
Because you need a new vision. You need a new hope. You need something better that's going to motivate you and give you the energy and the force to move forward. So we kind of talked about that a little bit. So the second one is reduce the intake of distraction. And I did talk a little bit about stop rehearsing the past.
Yeah, stop going over it.
Start going it over and over and over and over, because you just keep hurting yourself.
Oh my gosh, that's something that I definitely have had to learn to not do, because the type of personality that I am is like, a lot of times when I'm in the moment of like an issue, or especially if it's like live in person with a person and there's a conflict or something's happening, I can never really, I need time to process my thoughts and my emotions.
Sure.
And if I have to handle it right there in the heat of it, I never say anything
productive,
like real or productive, or like I can't talk well, like this is what I'm feeling and this is why, and
Yeah,
I'm good, and I walk away being like, yes, I handled that really, really well, and I communicated
right.
exactly what was going on. So like I've had to learn, like you walk away sometimes, from situations like that, and I would just be like, oh, I should have said this and I should have said that and I should have done this, and why didn't I say this, and then why did,
Oh
and then in my
man.
head it makes
Oh.
it like 10 times worse because you're
Yeah,
rehearsing,
oh yeah,
reliving,
yeah.
rehashing,
You're
and
not
then
only upset, but now you're
but now
resentful.
you're like, oh my gosh, and so it's kind of a funny example, but it gets you like worked up even
No,
more
I
when
think
you
that's
do
good. That's
that.
really
And
good.
so you kind of have to just walk away from stuff like that, being
Yeah,
like, well, what happened.
yeah,
So can I fix it? Yes.
sure.
Okay, let me fix it. Can I do anything about it? No. So now I have to let it go. Now I have to let it go.
Yeah,
And then I have to let it go tomorrow. And I have to let
right,
it go the next day. And I keep letting it go, I guess is my
right.
point, until you just let it go,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But you have to control that
But the
mind
more you think
flow.
about it,
Right.
the
Yeah.
more it affects
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. So you have to starve your distractions.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to say, no, I'm not going to keep thinking about this.
Mhm.
I'm going to think of something else,
Yeah.
and I'm going to draw my attention to something else.
Yeah.
There's some of us that live in here in the
Mhm.
brain,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I'm constantly living up there,
Yeah. Right.
and that's the worst enemy, or that could be my greatest friend.
Yeah. Right.
And so there are times that I even have to, in the car especially, I have to turn the radio on
Uh-huh.
so that I can distract my
Just
mind,
distract. Yeah.
because otherwise I'm just going and
Yeah.
going and going and going.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of people say, don't watch TV right before you go to sleep.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm sorry, I have to,
Mhm.
because if
Yeah.
not, I'm just sitting there
Your brain
thinking,
is is
you
is too
know,
active, probably.
oh, my mind is just,
It's like a
yeah.
calming.
So you gotta starve your distractions.
Yeah.
If
Right. However that looks for you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
obviously in a healthy way,
Right. Yeah.
because sometimes we try to get distracted with things that are not so
Yeah.
healthy. So, but reduce your intake
Yeah.
of that memory, and it'll
Yeah.
help.
No,
But
yeah. And I think even sometimes you might have to, like I've experienced with certain friendships or relationships, like a strain, and I've maybe tried my part to help with that
yeah,
past issue or
yeah,
whatever, and there might be a time where you just have to make adjustments in your life,
absolutely.
because if I feel a certain way when I'm with that person
Yeah.
and it leaves me feeling negative,
Oh yeah.
then that and it brings up that past,
Yeah.
then I might have to tell myself, I think for right now I need to have a little space here,
Yeah. Yeah.
until I feel healthy, until
Sure.
I feel good. It
Exactly.
might not even have anything to do with the way that person's being. They
Sure.
might be totally oblivious or over it.
Yeah.
And but if I'm not, if it's doing something negative
They
to
might be that
me,
bad their whole life, and they don't even
and
know
they,
it.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? So that's
As far as
exactly
they're
my
concerned, they're
that's
fine.
that's exactly my point. You might have to make adjustments for you
Exactly.
so that you can fully heal from
Yeah.
past or whatever you
Yeah.
say. I can't go over here right now.
Sure.
I need a time where I'm
Yeah.
not around this
Yeah.
atmosphere or person or
Sure.
situation or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's something you have to do, because that's a part of pulling away from
Yeah.
something that might try to pull you back to a past
I
thing.
love that. I love that, because sometimes in Christianity we think, oh well, I have to be everybody's buddy,
Yeah.
and I have to,
Right.
hug and
Right.
sing kumbaya,
Right.
and there
Be
are
okay all the time.
some
Yeah.
relationships that can be toxic.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and and if you try and you try, but those relationships, every time you get around, like you're saying, they making you feel inferior, or whatever. I
Hmm.
mean, if you do everything you're supposed to do and
Right.
it's still not as healthy, you need to move on.
Right.
You need to
Yeah.
move forward.
It might be a let go thing.
It might be a let
A
go
let go
thing.
thing. Yeah, for sure.
And
For sure.
hopefully, if that's your situation with your marriage or your
Oh,
relationship,
yeah.
then you need to get some professional
Yeah.
help.
Yeah, because there's
You
some
can't
that
just cut
you
and
can't
run.
just say, "You're annoying. I don't feel good around you."
Yeah.
You know, I know I'm
Which
specifically
I would
talking
have to
about.
say that once a week at
Yeah,
least.
I'm specifically talking about like maybe a friendship
Right,
or
right,
a
right.
coworker or you know an
Yeah,
atmosphere,
exactly.
you know. But no, yeah, of course, in a marriage, you got to
Yeah.
buckle down. You got to work on that. You got to
Yes.
talk about it,
Yeah.
and you got to say, "You're not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere."
So we got to figure
we got
this
to
out.
figure out how to make this
Work,
you know
because
a little
yeah.
better here. Yeah, no, for sure. And I think for me another thing that I'd like to add to, you know, how to strip certain, you know, things,
Yeah.
is sometimes you need to do the opposite of what you're doing. It's just like,
Yeah.
you know, I've told myself that sometimes, like, okay, if this is not good,
Yeah.
and it's not working right,
Yeah.
what's the opposite of what I'm doing? Because what I'm doing is clearly not working. So it's not working at all. So what it would be the total opposite.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, if I'm being
exactly.
super negative and
Yeah.
I'm pointing out, you know, or I'm being inactive, like for my health, if I'm
Sure.
not working out, if I'm not eating right, if I'm
Yeah.
not being active,
Yeah.
and I don't like the results, and that's what I'm doing. Well, what's the opposite?
What's the opposite?
The opposite is, you know, obvious, you know, and sometimes that's a good way to show you what you need
That's
to
good.
strip,
That's practical.
and then what to do instead.
Yeah.
You know,
Man, that's good.
what's the opposite of what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Okay, let me try that.
Yeah. Yeah, because sometimes people say, and we all say, I don't know what else to do.
Mhm.
I don't know what else to do. So
Yeah.
that's a great question.
Yeah.
Well, what's the opposite of what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I'm griping, the opposite is maybe I should be praising people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And it seems like such
And it's
a
amazing
simple.
how things change magically.
Yeah.
And you will go like, it worked.
You're like, wow. What I was doing wasn't working, so I tried something new.
Right.
And now it's working, you know, it's hard. It's hard to do that sometimes because you just get like stuck in a pattern or
Yeah.
stuck in a way. But
Sure.
I find that helps me sometimes. What's
Yeah.
the opposite?
That's good.
of
That's
what
a
I'm
good
doing,
question.
you know?
The next one is renew.
Hmm.
You know, either renew what you're thinking, renew
Yeah,
what you're
that's
reading.
so
You
good.
know, in other words, try something new.
Mhm. Mhm.
Try something new. You
Mhm.
know, it's amazing because I do a lot of counseling, and
Yeah.
and I ask, especially guys, you know,
Mhm.
I ask them because sometimes they come, oh, it's not working,
Yeah.
Pastor
Yeah.
John, it's just not working, and I'm like, okay, well, when was the last time you brought your wife some flowers?
Mhm.
And they're like, what? Flowers? I don't do that. And
My wife doesn't like flowers.
I'm like, okay, that's possible. If she doesn't like flowers, okay, when was the last
No,
time?
I'm saying like
No,
every
but it's
woman loves
yeah,
flowers.
I think so.
You know,
But even if
it
that was
might
the
not be your
case,
favorite, but
yeah.
it makes
So
you feel happy.
so
you know?
that would be the case, then you would say, okay,
Okay.
well, what's your favorite
what
wife's
does she
flower?
like? You know, yeah, yeah.
You know, and so if he strikes out on two of those, I know I got a green guy. This guy is green, and so I tell him, try something new.
Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
it that you know you could do but you
Yeah.
haven't done?
Right.
And
That's
it's
so good.
usually just a little thoughtful
Simple
thing.
things.
Simple thing.
Mhm.
Try something
Try
new.
something new.
You know,
That's right.
if you're arguing, stop arguing.
Mhm.
You know, maybe
Yeah.
start praising. So
Start
maybe it goes
encouraging.
hand
Yeah.
in hand with
What's the opposite?
yeah, what's
Yeah.
the opposite?
I think that it goes well together. You
Yeah.
know, that try something new, and okay, what could that be? Well, what's the opposite of what I've been doing? And
Exactly.
then that might be the new thing
That
I
might
need
take
to
you to
do.
the new thing
You
very
know,
easily,
yeah.
which is great. And then the last one is respond in faith.
Mhm.
Exercise your faith. In other words, believe
Mhm.
that God will work through
Yeah.
the effort that you put in. You
That's
know,
so good.
and I tell people, look, if we're talking about relationship, I might tell them, look, uh, maybe you have lost faith in your
Mhm.
spouse.
Mhm.
Maybe you are at that point. But you
That's
know
so
what?
good.
Don't
Yeah.
put your faith in your spouse.
Right.
Put your faith in God.
Exercise your
Put
faith. Yeah.
believe and have confidence that God can work on your spouse.
Hmm.
Because people say, "Well, I don't believe in them anymore, or I don't believe her anymore, or I've lost faith, or I
No.
lost hope."
Yeah.
Well, put your faith in God.
Yeah.
That God can work through him, or in him, or in her, or through her.
Yeah.
And I think that changes everything.
Oh yeah.
Because when people say, "Well, he doesn't change," or "She doesn't change," I've tried to change her, and I've tried to.
Hmm.
It's you can't change anybody.
No.
So if you want to move forward, you also have to exercise faith. You gotta believe in yourself
Hmm.
also. You gotta say, I know I can do this with the
Hmm.
right training, with the right information,
Hmm.
so I know you got stuff to say
Yeah.
about this, so I'm gonna shut up now.
No, no, no. I'm listening to you, and I'm like, yes, this is so good. This is so good. Yeah. I mean, for me, I think you covered it. To be honest, like exercising your faith is, I think, so many times it's the last thing we try.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's almost like that. We wait to get to that desperation space. And so for me, that would be my only note is like maybe try turning and exercising your faith first,
Early.
early on.
Not
Yeah,
at the end.
yeah, and not when you feel like all hope is lost and
Yeah.
I'm ready to throw in the towel with whatever,
Yeah, yeah,
on myself or with this challenge or
yeah,
like immediately activate faith
Yeah.
in your life about it. Because I think that the faith part, the faith aspect is the God aspect
the God aspect. There you go.
that gives
That's
you
good.
a sense of peace and security and
Somebody bigger than
yeah,
yourself.
that there
is in
is
your
there
corner.
is something beyond me,
Yeah.
beyond my abilities, beyond my inabilities, that is going to be acting and has power and
Yeah.
can come in where I'm weak and help me with this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's my biggest thing there.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think that if you believe in something, then you're gonna act on it.
That's
And
that's what faith is.
I think when you put your trust in God, then now you have a power beyond human nature
Hmm.
that is in your corner. And
Yeah.
and I mean, if you don't feel hope with that,
Yeah.
I don't know what else is
Yeah.
going to give you hope.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, I think most people do.
Yeah,
I think even people who aren't really strong Christians,
sure.
they'll turn to God
Oh
in
man,
a point of desperation
in a
because
heartbeat, in a heartbeat.
because you kind of have this, even if you're not fully immersed in Christianity, you kind of have this hope of like
It's a
there's
innate
if there's something
innate
bigger.
drive
Yeah, if
to
there's something
something
bigger out
greater.
there, please
Yeah,
help me. I don't
yeah,
know what to do,
yeah,
And so yeah, so
yeah.
it is, and God will always come through.
And I believe that 100%.
Yeah.
And I think that if you practice these four things,
Hmm.
it'll help you move forward.
Yeah.
If you replace the painful memory with
Hmm.
a vision of a greater you
That's good.
and God, you reduce the intake of the past and
Yeah.
stop rehearsing. You renew,
Yeah.
try something new, and then you exercise your faith and believe that God will do the rest.
That's
You
right.
do your part,
Yeah.
God will do the rest, and you'll see how you'll start moving forward and
That's
you'll
right.
have less baggage to
Yeah,
carry.
that's so good. That's so good. So practice those things this week.
Practice, practice.
And be patient with yourself through the process of
Oh, yeah.
practicing. Keep practicing because moving forward is a process and it's
Yeah.
ongoing. And it's awesome because once you get to that new space, then because God is such a great God, He always has the next new space.
Yes, exactly.
And so just embrace the whole
Embrace
process of it. It's how we grow. It's how we become stronger.
Yeah.
And how we go from the next best thing to the next best thing.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
You can move forward.
Yep.
So God bless you.
God
Thank
bless
you for being with us here at the Drop.